take the Duncan side.
If you thought Dunk was in trouble before, Episode 4 just threw him into the deepest pit of Westeros. The moment Prince Baelor rode onto that battlefield while the Game of Thrones theme music dropped, people lost their minds. And honestly, I get it. This episode earned a 9.7 rating on IMDb, making it one of the highest-rated episodes in the entire Game of Thrones universe. And here's exactly why that happened. We open on Dunk sitting in a cold, wet dungeon cell, rain pouring outside, trying to make friends with a rat. That's where our big, lovable Hedge knight has ended up after punching a Targaryen prince in the face. But here's the thing, Dunk didn't do anything wrong. He saw Prince Aerion breaking the fingers of a puppeteer named Tanzel because her show hurt his feelings, and Dunk did what any real knight should do. He stepped in. He protected an innocent person. That's what knights are supposed to do, right? Well, in Westeros, doing the right thing can get you killed. Then Egg walks in, except he's not dressed like a squire anymore. He's wearing full Targaryen red and black, looking every bit the prince he actually is. Dunk is starving, so Egg brings him food, but there's this thick tension between them. Egg tries to apologize for lying about who he really is, saying his uncle Prince Baelor told him he needs to ask for forgiveness. Dunk just stares at him and says, "Your uncle? The heir to the Iron Throne." The hurt in his voice is obvious. Dunk thought he found a real friend, a loyal squire, someone who saw him as more than just another nobody Hedge knight. Instead, the whole time, Egg was a prince playing dress-up. But here's what makes this moment so good. Dunk isn't angry because Egg is royalty. He's angry because Egg lied to him. Dunk is all about honor and honesty. Those are the values Sir Arlan taught him. And finding out his squire has been deceiving him this whole time cuts deep. Still, even in his anger, you can see Dunk cares about Egg. That's just who he is. Prince Baelor then enters the picture. This guy is the heir to the Iron Throne, hand of the king, and everything you'd want in a ruler. He's kind, wise, fair, and actually believes in doing what's right. When he talks to Dunk, he doesn't pull rank or treat him like trash. He speaks to him like an equal, like a fellow knight. Baelor knows Dunk protected an innocent person, which is exactly what knights are supposed to do. But here's the problem. Aerion is the king's grandson. His royal blood. The law doesn't care that Aerion is a psychopath who broke a woman's fingers and genuinely believes he's a dragon in human form. Dunk struck a prince, and in Westeros, that means a trial. Baelor lays it out for Dunk. If he goes to trial, he's going to lose a hand and a foot, maybe worse. But there's another way. Dunk can demand a trial by combat. This means Dunk would fight Aerion one-on-one to prove his innocence. And since Dunk already beat the crap out of Aerion once, that should be easy, right? Wrong. Because Aerion is a coward and a snake. When Dunk is brought before the court and demands his trial by combat, Aerion refuses. But he can only refuse if he withdraws his accusation. So instead, Aerion calls for a trial of 7. This is an ancient ritual that hasn't been used in over 100 years. 7 warriors fight for each side, invoking the gods to see the guilty punished. Aerion knows exactly what he's doing. He can easily gather 6 fighters. He's got his father Prince Maker, his brother Daeron, 3 knights of the Kingsguard, and he even buys off Sir Steffan Fossoway, who had promised to fight for Dunk, by offering him a lordship. Meanwhile, Dunk is a nobody Hedge knight with no money, no lands, and no connections. Finding 6 men willing to die for him seems impossible. But here's where the beauty of Dunk's character shines through. People start stepping forward. First, there's Sir Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm, who's in it for the glory of fighting in the first trial of 7 in a century. Then there's Sir Humfrey Harding, whose leg was broken by Aerion in a joust, and he wants revenge. Sir Humfrey Beesbury joins because Harding is his good brother. Sir Robin Riesling, the one-eyed knight Egg called the maddest knight in Westeros, also signs up. And Raymond Fossoway, the young squire whose cousin Steffan betrayed Dunk, begs to be knighted so he can take Steffan's place and fight. Sir Lionel knights him right there on the spot. Then there's the blacksmith Steely Pate, who reinforces Dunk's shield and charges him only a single copper, showing his support. Speaking of the shield, can we talk about how beautiful and sad this moment is? Tanzel painted Dunk's shield with an elm tree on a sunset background with a shooting star above it. When Dunk sees it, he breaks down because he thinks it's an omen of his death. The sunset looks like the end of the day, the end of his life. The shooting star is falling, symbolizing a great fall. But Steely Pate, this absolute legend of a man, reassures him. He tells Dunk to look at the elm tree, still standing strong with green leaves full of life. The shield is heavier now, Pate says, but stronger. Just like Dunk himself, who's been through hell but is still standing. Now let's talk about Egg's brothers, because this is where things get darker. We find out more about why Egg ran away from his family. Prince Aerion, who seemed like a complete mess in episode 1, is actually not that bad. He brings Egg to see Dunk and admits he lied to their father about Dunk kidnapping Egg because he was scared. Aerion is a drunk, sure, but he's on Egg's side. He tells Dunk he won't fight hard during the trial and then drops a bomb. Aerion has prophetic dreams, and he dreamed of a dragon falling on Dunk. The dragon dies, but Dunk emerges alive. This is huge foreshadowing for readers of the books because it connects to the tragedy at Summer Hall, where Dunk and Egg both die, but we'll get to that later. Then there's Aerion, who is straight up evil. Egg reveals that when he was very young, Aerion would sneak into his room at night and threaten to mutilate him and marry him. Remember, Targaryens have a history of marrying brothers and sisters, so this isn't just a weird threat, it's a very real and terrifying one for a child. Aerion also killed Egg's cat by throwing it down a well. This isn't just a cruel kid. This is someone deeply disturbed who genuinely believes he's a dragon trapped in human skin. That's why he lost his mind at Tansel's puppet show, where a dragon was killed. In Aerion's twisted brain, that was an attack on him personally. So Dunk has 5 knights, and he needs 2 more. The morning of the trial arrives, and Dunk makes one last desperate plea to the crowd. He stands before everyone and talks about Sir Arlen, his mentor, the man who raised him and taught him what it means to be a knight. No one remembers Sir Arlen. He was just another Hedge knight who died poor and forgotten. But Dunk remembers him, and is trying to live by the values Arlen taught him. The crowd stays silent. No one steps forward. It looks like Dunk is about to forfeit and lose everything. The tension is unbearable. And then, the iconic Game of Thrones theme music starts playing. Not the full version we know from the original show, but a remixed version that fits this series. People in the comments are saying this moment hit them like a truck, and I totally get why. Prince Baelor Targaryen rides onto the field in his son's armor and announces he will be Dunk's 7th champion. The heir to the Iron Throne is going to fight against members of his own family to defend a common Hedge knight. This is the kind of hero moment we almost never see in the Game of Thrones universe, especially not from a Targaryen. In the books, Baelor is known as Baelor Breakspear, a name he earned at 17 when he defeated Demon Blackfire, his father's bastard half-brother, in a famous joust. Baelor is everything a king should be. He's brave, wise, kind, and genuinely cares about justice. He's the kind of ruler Westeros desperately needs. And here he is, putting everything on the line for a man he barely knows because he believes it's the right thing to do. Let's talk about what this trial of 7 actually means in the books versus the show. In George R.R. Martin's novella The Hedge Knight, this trial is described as an Andal tradition brought over the narrow sea thousands of years ago. The Andals worshipped the 7 gods, and a trial of 7 was meant to invoke all 7 aspects of the divine to determine guilt or innocence. It requires 14 knights total, 7 on each side, and they fight in a brutal melee until one side yields or is defeated. The last trial of 7 before this one happened over 100 years ago, so this is a really big deal. What makes this even more interesting is the political implications. Baelor joining Dunk's side creates a massive problem for the other side. 3 of Aerion's champions are Kingsguard, and the Kingsguard are sworn to protect the royal family, especially the heir to the throne. They literally cannot attack Baelor without violating their sacred oaths. Baelor knows this, and he uses it to give Dunk's team an advantage. He also advises them to use tawny lances instead of war lances because tawny lances are longer and will strike first in the opening charge. This is the kind of tactical genius that makes Baelor such a great leader. But there's a dark cloud hanging over all of this, and book readers know what's coming. In The Hedge Knight, Baelor dies during the trial. His own brother, Prince Maker, Egg's father, accidentally strikes him in the head with a mace during the melee. The blow crushes Baelor's skull, and he dies in Dunk's arms. This is one of the most tragic moments in all of Martin's work because Baelor was genuinely good, one of the few truly honorable Targaryens we ever meet. His death changes the entire line of succession for the Iron Throne and sets off a chain of events that eventually leads to Egg becoming King Aegon V, also known as Aegon the Unlikely. Baelor's death also haunts Prince Maker for the rest of his life. The books tell us that Maker marked the anniversary of his brother's death every year and never forgave himself. even though it was an accident. This guilt is part of why Maker allows Egg to continue squiring for Dunk after the trial. He knows Egg is safer and happier with Dunk than he ever was at home with a family that includes monsters like Aerion. Now, the show hasn't gotten to the actual battle yet. Episode 4 ends with Baelor riding onto the field, setting up what's going to be an absolutely brutal fight in the next episode. But knowing what happens in the books makes this moment bittersweet. Dunk did the right thing. He protected an innocent woman from being tortured by a sadistic prince. But the system doesn't care about right and wrong. It cares about power and bloodlines. If Baelor hadn't stepped in, Dunk would have been mutilated or killed for being a good person. The episode asks a really important question. How much good can one person do against a system that's rigged against those without power? Dunk is trying, though. He's brave, he's sincere, and he genuinely believes in the ideals of knighthood, even when the world keeps proving those ideals are a joke. That's what makes him such a compelling character. He's not the smartest guy. He's not the best fighter. But he's kind, and he tries to do the right thing, even when it costs him everything. Let's also talk about the smaller moments that made this episode so good. The scene where Dunk tries to pet the rat in his cell is heartbreaking. It shows how lonely and desperate he is. The moment when Egg brings him food and Dunk calls him Egg instead of Prince Aerion shows that their friendship is real, despite the lies. The way Dunk defends Egg to Baelor, calling him a good and kind boy, proves that Dunk's anger isn't about betrayal. It's about fear that Egg was just using him, that their friendship wasn't real. The show is doing an incredible job of balancing the lighter, more hopeful tone of Dunk and Egg's adventures with the darker, more tragic elements that are always lurking in the background. This isn't Game of Thrones with constant backstabbing and murder. It's a simpler, smaller story about a good man trying to survive in a cruel world. One more thing worth mentioning is the incredible performances in this episode. Peter Claffey as Dunk is perfect. He makes you feel every bit of Dunk's pain, confusion, and determination. Dexter Saul Ansel as Egg brings so much depth to a character who could have just been a cute kid sidekick. And Bertie Carvel as Baelor, chef's kiss. He radiates wisdom and nobility without being preachy or boring. You genuinely believe this is a man worth following. The cinematography in this episode is also stunning. The opening shot of the stars reflected in the puddles on the dungeon floor is gorgeous. It's a moment of beauty in the middle of Dunk's darkest hour, a reminder that even when things seem hopeless, there's still something worth fighting for. So where does this leave us? Dunk has his 7 champions. Aerion has his 7. The stage is set for the trial of 7, which is going to be one of the most intense battles we've seen in this series. And hanging over all of it is the knowledge that this fight is going to cost lives. Good people are going to die, and the best among them might be the one who pays the highest price. If you haven't been watching A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, you're missing out on something special. This isn't just another Game of Thrones spin-off. It's a story about honor, friendship, and what it means to be a true knight in a world that doesn't care about any of those things. Episode 4 just raised the stakes higher than ever, and I cannot wait to see what happens next. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this. Drop a comment and let me know what you thought of Episode 4. Did Baelor's entrance give you chills? Are you ready for the trial of 7? Let's talk about it. And remember, in the Game of Thrones, you win or you die, but sometimes, you fight just because it's the right thing to do.